The alarm tore through my sleep like a blade, and for one full second, I did not know where I was. Then the words hit me. Level 3 containment breach. All 31 Socirathi cubs missing from the nursery wing. I was out of my bunk before my mind caught up with my body. 31 cubs, gone, on a station with vacuum pressing against every wall, 11 light years from anywhere that could send help in less than a decade. My name is Callum Ashford. I work in habitat maintenance on Station Halvorn, a research outpost built to host the first Socirathi younglings ever placed in human care, while their species finished treaty talks with the Compact. I fix pipes, filters, and broken regulators. I am not a soldier, not a scientist, not anyone important. That night, none of that mattered. I ran. The corridors were already full of people shouting orders into radios, boots pounding against metal floors, red emergency lights washing everything the color of old blood. I pushed through a knot of security officers near the nursery entrance and found Dr. Priya Ostrander, the lead xenopsychologist, standing in the middle of an empty room that should have held 31 small, terrified alien children. The nursery was silent, too silent. Bedding torn apart, feeding trays overturned. Not a single cub in sight. I need to explain something about the Socirathi cubs, because if you have never seen one, you are picturing this wrong. They stand about the size of a large dog, six-limbed, with soft shell plating that has not hardened yet, and rows of small sharp teeth they barely know how to control. Their homeworld is brutal, predators everywhere. Because of that, Socirathi younglings imprint hard on anything that feels safe, and once they imprint, they do not let go. Not for food, not for fear, not for anything. The problem was that nothing on this station had ever felt safe to them. Dr. Ostrander had warned the command staff for weeks. The cubs were stressed. They were barely eating. At night, they clustered together and screamed in a way that made your skin crawl, a sound of pure loneliness with nowhere to go. Every handler wore full protective gear. Every interaction followed strict protocol. No skin contact, no unscheduled visits, no comfort beyond what a checklist allowed. Nobody had truly listened, because nobody wanted to admit that a room full of alien infants might simply be afraid. Security swept every inch of the wing within minutes. The airlocks were untouched, which meant no cub had wandered anywhere near the vacuum, and that single fact kept me breathing. But 31 cubs had vanished from a sealed section without triggering a single motion sensor, and that detail chilled me more than anything else. Motion sensors do not miss 31 moving bodies unless something is hiding them. I was helping search a cargo corridor when Ronan Blackwood from station security found me. He was breathing hard, one hand still resting near his sidearm out of habit, though something in his face told me the danger, whatever it was, had already passed. "Callum," he said, "you need to come with me right now." "Where?" I asked. "Your quarters," he said. "Just come." I followed him through 2 corridors and down a narrow maintenance passage I used almost daily. My mind raced through every terrible possibility. Sabotage, an intruder, something worse. He stopped outside my own door, hesitated, then opened it slowly, like he was afraid of waking something. The lights were off. In the dim spill from the hallway, I saw my bed had become one single mass of gray-green shell and limbs and tails, pressed together so tightly I could not tell where one small body ended and the next began. 31 cubs, all of them, piled together in my room, breathing slow and steady, fast asleep. A few lifted their heads when the light touched them, blinking dark wet eyes, then settled back down without a sound. They had pulled a spare uniform off my shelf and dragged it into the pile like a blanket. One cub had wound a bootlace gently around a foreleg. The air smelled faintly of machine oil, and a warm ozone scent I now understand was calm, not the sharp burnt smell of fear I had noticed drifting from the nursery for weeks. "How?" I said, though it barely came out as a question. Dr. Ostrander arrived minutes later, still in her sleep clothes, her badge crooked on her collar. She stood in the doorway and stared at the pile of sleeping cubs for a long moment before she spoke. "They imprinted," she said quietly, and said, "Callum, when were you last inside the nursery?" I had to think. 2 days ago, I said. Pipe inspection. Maybe 40 minutes. Doing what exactly? Fixing the thermal regulator. One of them would not stop crying, the little one with the notched ear tab. I just talked to her while I worked. Told her about my day. Complained about the leaking valve. Nothing important. I did not think anything of it. You talked to her, Ostrander repeated, almost to herself. I talk to everything when I fix it, I said. It is a habit. Machines, pipes, whatever is broken. I did not even register it as strange. She let out a breath that was half laugh, half disbelief. In 6 weeks of careful, fully approved handling by 4 trained specialists, we produced nothing but stress in every single cub, she said. You spent 40 minutes complaining to a broken valve while a frightened animal listened to your voice. And somehow, you became the safest thing on this entire station. I looked back at the pile on my bed. The cub with the notched ear cracked one eye open, found me across the room, and made a low rattling sound deep in her chest. I would learn later that sound was closest to what humans call a purr. They did not stumble past 30 motion sensors by luck, said Ronan slowly, working through it out loud. 31 frightened younglings moved together in the dark, through a sealed section, straight to one specific door, and not one sensor caught more than a flicker of movement at a time. They followed a scent trail, Ostrander said, his scent trail, through 2 corridors and a maintenance duct that the schematics say is too narrow for an adult human, let alone a juvenile Escrathi with a soft, undeveloped shell. They should not have fit through that space. They should not have known the route existed. They managed both, because right now Callum is the only creature on this station who has ever made one of them feel safe, and where one goes, all of them follow. I sat carefully on the one small corner of the bed the pile had not claimed. The cub with the notched ear immediately shuffled closer and rested her head against my knee, as if that had been the plan from the very beginning. So, what happens now? I asked. You cannot exactly move 31 alien children into a maintenance closet. Ostrander was already tapping quickly on her tablet, and I could see the shape of the next several weeks rearranging itself on the screen in front of her. Now, she said, I write a report recommending we rebuild the entire socialization program around a maintenance technician who had no idea he was practicing xenopsychology. And you, Callum, are about to matter a great deal more to the compact treaty than anyone expected a pipe repair specialist to matter. Behind her, out in the corridor, a few more cubs arrived, the last stragglers who had taken a wrong turn in the duct system. They moved low and fast and silent, slipping into gaps in the pile like water finding the lowest point, until every single one was accounted for. Word spread through the station faster than any official report could travel. Within hours, senior staff were crowded outside my door, whispering theories, some amazed, some deeply uneasy, about a species that could organize a coordinated escape without a single alarm catching them in the act. Commander Iris Falconer arrived personally, arms crossed, studying the sleeping pile with the expression of someone recalculating an entire mission plan in real time. This changes our approach completely, she said finally. If a treaty depends on these younglings feeling safe among us, and they only feel safe around one person, then that person becomes central to the mission, whether he signed up for it or not. I was not a scientist. I did not understand half of what the specialists discussed over the following days, terms like attachment bonding and cross-species trust thresholds. What I understood was simpler. Every morning I woke to find small, warm bodies curled against me, calmer than they had been in 6 weeks of careful protocol. Every evening, when I returned from my regular maintenance rounds, 31 heads lifted at the sound of my footsteps in the corridor, and 31 small chests made that same low, rattling sound. Ostrander redesigned the entire nursery around what she now called proximity therapy. My work shifts were adjusted so I could spend real time with the cubs each day. No gloves, no full containment suits, just presence and a steady, familiar voice. Slowly, the sharp, burnt scent of fear faded from the nursery halls. Feeding numbers improved. The screaming at night stopped almost entirely. 3 weeks later, a Sci-Fi diplomatic vessel arrived to review the younglings before finalizing treaty terms. I stood at the edge of the nursery, nervous in a way I had never felt fixing pipes, as 3 towering adult Srathi moved silently between the cubs, observing everything. The lead diplomat, a broad-shouldered figure named Vashtar, approached me directly, translator device humming softly at his throat. "You are the one they call safe," he said. It was not quite a question. "I do not know why," I admitted. "I just talk to them, like I talk to everything." Vashtar studied me for a long moment, then made a low sound that the translator rendered as something between respect and quiet astonishment. "Among my people," he said, "safety is not built through control or protocol. It is built through consistency, through a voice that never changes whether times are calm or difficult. You gave them that without ever meaning to. That is rarer than any of your specialists understand." The treaty was signed 2 days later. Commander Falconer told me afterward that the observation of the Cubs bonding successfully with human presence had done more to convince the Asrathi delegation than every carefully worded diplomatic document combined. I still fix pipes. I still complain out loud while I work, mostly out of habit now, though I know 31 small alien children are usually listening somewhere nearby, calm, breathing slow, no longer afraid of the dark corridors of this station. Some nights, I still find 1 or 2 of them curled against my door when I return from a late shift, waiting, simply because that is where safety lives for them now. I never planned to become anything more than a maintenance technician on a distant research outpost. But sometimes, the most important work is not the one written on your job assignment. Sometimes it is simply being the steady voice in the dark that never changes, until something small and frightened finally learns it is allowed to feel safe.